announcement to be made by the IEBC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, declaring the results of the presidential election of August the 9th. Everything appears set. The Deputy President, William Ruto, is already at the Bomas of Kenya. We are still yet to establish the whereabouts of Azimio La Umoja, One Kenya presidential flag bearer, Raila Odinga. A lot of activity happening at the Bomas of Kenya. I'm still in studio with my panel, Ismas Mukua, Kevin Osido, Hesbon Willa, and Rafael Obonyo. And the anxiety is palpable. You can actually feel everywhere, watching on screen. The streets are clear. We're just waiting for that announcement. And surely this is not how elections should be. We should have a clear winner, Rafael.
Yeah.
So that people are still celebrating, both sides are celebrating. Yeah. That means even now, even past the hour when the announcement was to be made initially, we still are not sure where it is going.
Which makes it, quite tragic in the sense that if it's about arithmetics, by now we should have known what are the numbers and what are the numbers telling us in terms of who has won and who has lost. But remember also, this is a political process, and so I'm sure political players need to be convinced or persuaded that the process was actually free, fair and credible. And by the process is not just voting. I think the issue of tallying, which perhaps is something they're trying to see. They're trying to agree if it did meet the threshold that had been sort of recommended by the Supreme Court ruling of 2017. But for sure, I think we shouldn't take Kenyans through this kind of anxiety, pain, and waiting. I think we've tested their patience too much. So if there's a way we can fast track, but also make sure that the declaration is made as soon as possible, I think it's extremely important.
But even blinking has become tedious. You don't want to miss anything. I was glued on the screens just to make sure you get every beat of the action. But surely, as Rafael says, should an election be this way, the wait for the declaration, hours and hours on end?
Well, I think this tension is not healthy. It's not healthy for our democracy. It's not healthy for Kenyans. Whether you are at Bomas, watching from home, or inside the studio like this, it doesn't look like it's healthy. The only interesting thing is that the folks at Bomas seem to be very indifferent. You read the emotions and you can't tell who is celebrating and who is not celebrating. I don't know whether that is good or bad, but it basically tells you that there's only one person who has an answer to this. And that stretches the limits of how predictable are our processes, and does that unpredictable outcome have to come the way it's gonna come? We know ultimately there's only one winner, and I think guys outside there want either to celebrate or mask their wins.
And the sooner that happens,
the better. Because at the end of the day, we need closure to the whole process. The healing starts for the guys who shall have lost, and the pressing, all and sundry starts for the guys who win, and we move on as a country.
Now, Kevin, the issue of these results and the fact that Chebukati made the announcement that he would make the declaration at 3 p.m. That's the initial invitation, even to the media.
Correct.
Definitely for him to do that, he knew he had an announcement ready to be made.
Correct.
He postponed it to 4 p.m. What do you think this kind of tension really portends for our election going forward? Because so far the process has been quite transparent, and when you say, because he has said before that he will make the announcement during daytime.
Yeah.
Yes, but then now he's giving us promises, 3 p.m., 4 p.m. What should we expect next?
I've read borrowing from 2017, because I was physically at Bomas when Raila Odinga came, and when the then president-elect showed up at Bomas. When the limits are stretched to this extent, the clear indicator is that there could be a standoff. The only challenge is that as we even see the people who are seated there inside Bomas, it becomes quite difficult to tell what that particular standoff could be. But if you look at even the elections that took place at the county and the constituency level, the manner in which the winners and the losers were prepared, even up to the extent of their agents accepting to sign or not to sign, and what the IEBC, the ramifications of that with regards to acceptance of results until we submit the forms or give the form to the person who's been elected. Borrowing that and bringing it up to the level of the National Tallying Center and keeping Kenyans waiting this much, I dare say that probably there could be something seriously wrong. And it takes me to what you are asking, which is purely about the preparedness within IEBC itself. I'm sure that by the time they were preparing the statements and also sharing information for people to come to Bomas, a lot of conversations could or should or may, one of those three, have taken place between the agents of the presidential candidates, because they've been camping at Bomas all this while, verifying and also having conversations. To the extent that we now have 3 presidential candidates at Bomas, because we are told that Professor Wajakoya is there, Bishop Mwaure is already there, and the deputy president who walked in style. 1 hour plus, I think, is quite unfortunate. And if you look at the streets of Nairobi today, and I guess maybe other cities and other towns as well, they are vacant. They are vacated. Offices have actually closed because today is a working day. In my view, and it takes me back to what I proposed, because in this election we are going to have more than 14,218 losers out of the 16,100 candidates who are cleared by the IEBC. Of course, at the presidential level, there are going to be 3 losers. So Kenyans, beyond just getting prepared to wait for within the 7 days, because this was also a very tight race. There are elections where by the time you walk into a section and you walk out, you already know who is winning that particular election. But for Kenya elections 22, the kind of race that we have seen, right from the party primaries level to the campaigns, and now up to the point where we are expecting a president-elect, and insofar as either sides have already done their tallies, the Constitution declares that it is only the chair and the returning officer of the National Tallying Center who can be able to make that announcement. It leaves Kenyans wondering, what sort of election is this? What sort of democracy are we building? And that's why, for me, the proposal earlier on was digitize these processes. And with the digitization, even if it is upon the president, the chair of the IEBC to make that ultimate announcement, it becomes easy for people to know. Because this is a case where we even have disputes already. People are saying we have found people with the ballots that have been ticked, There are lots of challenges that even up to now, it becomes quite difficult for us to be able to tell how the tallies are going. Of course, word is out there. Well, let me not say word is out there, but we can easily guess who probably would be carrying on this. So that particular aspect of living, we are guessing Raphael because it's the chair of the commission that has to make that announcement. But leaving Kenyans or getting Kenyans up to the level of, closing down businesses, that nothing is happening. And you see, Fred, if we're not very careful with the kind of history that we have had in our elections, it becomes very challenging, because in the event that a candidate is declared and a certain part of the country is not happy, or certain people who voted for them are not happy, that wait still continues.
My understanding is that most Kenyans have left their offices or places of work because they're curious to follow the proceedings at the National Tallying Center, the Bomas of Kenya. But communication is key, and the IEBC has been blamed or accused of being poor in communicating, that probably even in civic education they did not do well. Is this a failure in terms of communication? Because even such a wait for such a huge announcement to be made is actually causing anxiety to the country. Someone should come out and say, yes, we'll wait a little bit longer because this and this is happening, don't you think?
I think what IEBC has done is a failure to manage expectations. When they sent out the alert that Mr. Chebukati is going to make the declaration at 3, one would have expected that they worked backwards and they knew for a fact that is going to happen at 3 o'clock. And if there is a standoff, as Kevin seems to suggest, or if there is an issue as to why Chebukati cannot keep time, maybe he's waiting for a cup of coffee, or maybe he was having lunch, or he's just waiting for Raila Odinga to come, the lady in charge of public communications at IBC should come and tell us that the chairman was to make a declaration at 3 o'clock for some unavoidable reasons, or even for avoidable reasons. He's not going to keep time. It's coming at 6 o'clock, so that we manage the tension or the anxiety. But just letting Kenyans stare at their TV sets or glued to the radio or online, I think is an act of contempt. That is an act of disrespect. They're disrespecting Kenyans because they know everybody's waiting. I think the only people probably who are happy with this are people who run hospitality facilities where clients are enjoying drinks and having more food as they wait. But I think IBC is treating Kenyans with the highest level of contempt.
Yes, because even the kind of celebrations we saw earlier, the singing and dancing at the Bomas of Kenya, it appears to have actually stopped or rather gone down. Why do you think this is? Because even them, they're getting tired.
Yeah, because the main item on the agenda, the program for the day, was the declaration of the winner. That's why people are there. The other things are good to keep people entertained, but I think the reason why people are there is just to for the purpose of declaration of the winner. And I think we've seen Kenya, for example, see that Chebukati should declare the winner, and then the choir can sing for so many days if they want. And so they're trying to say that let's prioritize what is important first. And I don't think it's helping Kenyans to delay the announcement of the winner, especially if the process has been to a large extent right. So I think IEBC should have kept their promise that they are going to announce the winner at a particular time. But in the event that there are issues, I think Kenyans deserve some explanation, and so I think IEBC needs to come out through the chair or any other official to at least explain to Kenyans that what is happening, because that is also a way of enhancing, building confidence among Kenyans. Because when Kenyans are not sure what is happening, that is how tensions start building up. So there's need for communication also to Kenyans, so that they know how much longer should they wait, or why are they supposed to be to wait in the first place.
A few moments ago, we showed you a picture of journalists and the cameras with their lenses trained on the entrance into the Bomas of Kenya compound, perhaps indicative of expectation that someone or something will be arriving. And probably that's the delay that we do expect. Do you think that the expectation is that the other candidate, Raila Odinga, who's the only presidential candidate who's yet to make his way to the Bomas of Kenya, that he could be still be expected to arrive there?
Yeah, I guess the way the cameras are positioned, I think all Kenyans, are asking where is Baba, and at what point will he show up at Bomas of Kenya. So that expectation, I think the moment we see Baba arriving at Bomas, probably won't need anyone to communicate to us that the standoff has been sorted. But as you can see, it's a bit obvious that there has to be something that is happening that probably we don't understand. And I agree with Dismas that there's a sense in which communication has to be managed. Maybe what IEBC is doing is that they're managing it by keeping quiet. And our expectation is by the time they emerge to speak, they should be having a way forward. Because I can tell you where it has reached. I don't think it's easy to manage expectation by coming to tell us something that would still keep us waiting. But I think having said that, there's one thing we probably need to celebrate, yeah? Kenyans from all parts of this country seem to be very calm and collected. I mean, from the footages that we've seen in the media, everyone is worried because they're waiting for that declaration. But I think there's a sense in which you're seeing some maturity in the way people are waiting. There is no distraction, there is no unnecessary celebration. So there is that belief that IEBC and Wafula Chebukati is the ultimate authority. And our prayer is that even after the declaration, we'll see the same situation prevail. People will be celebrating, will celebrate in a way that is mature enough to demonstrate that they trust the process. But it is also important to note that, this is not healthy. I mean, having all Kenyans glued on national TV for all these hours and still waiting, and we have no idea for how long we're going to wait, is not very interesting.
Yeah, but Kevin, if you look at social media, even up till now, the two teams are still convinced that each of them has separately won this election, which is also worrying to some extent. The fact that the IEBC opened up the portal and allowed access to any Kenyan who's able and has the resources to download and to tally the results. What does it say? Because surely, if at all it is that clear and transparent, then whoever has been counting should know whether or not they truly won. But the fact that they seem convinced that both teams have won, there's a problem somewhere.
Precisely, and that's really part of the challenge with some of the reforms that are happening within IEBC. And they are indeed part of the lessons that we are learning. Because as we said earlier on, the IEBC was put to task to open up the servers of the results of 2017 elections. And that became a huge task. And so what mitigative measure IEBC, in my view, decided to put forward was to open up that server by putting Kenyans through the toil of going through a portal. So it would not be right to probably condemn whichever side as to their celebrations having been convinced that they have won, because the forms are there. Of course, it's such a tedious thing to do because we have tried.
Someone is definitely getting the numbers wrong.
Exactly, somebody. And you see, part of that is also what the presidential agents were supposed to be doing on the floor of Bomas. And remember that at some point 2 days ago, one of the chief presidential agents actually walked over a security breach to the microphone and announced to the nation that I wish to think, without paraphrasing, I wish to announce to the nation that Bomas of Kenya is now a crime scene. And by the time you get to that level, as a chief presidential agent, it means that there are serious concerns that are going on. At the level of the clerks and also the agents really have to do with the forms and communication to, with and by the commissioners and indeed IEBC staff. So maybe you're also doing your tallies, but some of the errors that you are being informed about at Bomas, you are not taking them into account. Remember, Fred, that it is the same floor that we also saw a gentleman being dragged by some of those politicians who are there. And within a very short time, Bomas was declared, a no-go zone for certain people. And the commission, really, I think, had to be very clear around who needs to be at Bomas. So in as much as the tallies have been done, it is only the commission. And unfortunately, it is the chair of the commission. The event as somebody walked in, God forbid, and I'm saying this with a lot of respect, and shot the chair of the commission or just cut his hand. Erroneously, by mistake or peradventure, accidentally, he probably slips off one of the staircases of Bomas. And what would that mean? So as much as Kenyans have tallied their own results, the constitution gives the commission chair as the returning officer of the National Tallying Center that mandate. But in my view, we have to get to the level where life can still go on without necessarily putting Kenyans to this level. But remember again that politicians invest in what we are going through right now. There are people who are paid to pass the messages. There are people who are paid to download those forms. They were sitting on computers in some place. Those are resources that political parties and candidates are investing in the process. What therefore would be the reversal in terms of Kenyans woke up, they respected the privilege and the opportunity to go and vote. Why must we take them through this level? Must we also begin to ask ourselves, what amount of investment should we put in processes that therefore don't get Kenyans into this kind of thing?
I'm talking about processes because we can actually draw blocks onto the kind of processes from the handling of pre-election information, the handling of ballot material, the printing of ballot papers, the declaration of nominees, and all that before the election, come election day, and all that, there has been criticism. There has also been applause towards the IEBC in its handling of those processes, including the transmission. But when it comes to this very final process, which is verification and tallying, and now the announcement, is where we're seeing the IEBC is dropping the ball. Do you agree?
Yes, there's a marketing concept called under-promise and over-deliver. So IBC has failed on that because the communication has been like a pendulum, left, right. At some stage they get it right, they hit the high notes, and at some stage they don't even hit a single note. This is what is happening today. There needs to be consistency. It means that IBC doesn't have best practices in total, that they keep on fluctuating. But going to the main issue is, why would IBC tell us that it's all systems at 3 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock the silence is too loud? You said there were people who had been dancing, their energy levels have gone low. Even maybe the performers, they are told to do 2 songs, they get paid for 2 songs, and they take a walk. So probably everybody is tired. So in my view,
they've exhausted their songs list.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Or even maybe they need some energy drinks. Because they've been dancing from 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And there's a majority of the guys at Bomas now I'm beginning to wonder whether maybe even they have access to bathroom facilities, whether they have access to coffees and teas, because that all seemed to have serious challenges. In my view, as a matter of urgency, is for a responsible officer from IEBC to come and tell us